Hey everyone, it's Heidi Fang here with the Las Vegas Review-Journal's first ever fantasy football show, along with my colleagues, Review-Journal sports columnist Ed Graney here in the house, as well as Adam Hill, our sports writer for now the Golden Knights as well as MMA. So we cover it all here at the RJ, and now our first fantasy football show, the Fantasy Outlaws. And what's wrong, Ed?
I enjoy the name. We're like the Sons of Anarchy of fantasy football. We're the Outlaws. We're the bad guys.
I'm just glad my obsession and my years of playing every single minute of every day fantasy football is now paying off for my employment. That's good.
There you go.
And that's a big thing. It's like between the three of us, I think we have about 20, maybe plus years of fantasy experience. We got a lot of winners here. I know I'm a 5-time champion myself, and now getting to enjoy it here with the two of you. So very exciting to have this show and to be able to debut it here at the Review Journal. So we're here to try to guide everybody along, to try to get you into the right frame of mind as all these drafts start happening, because Labor Day weekend, it's really going to pick up for a lot of people drafting. There's a lot of hot picks out there right now, like Todd Gurley, you have Le'Veon Bell, you have, of course, Antonio Brown, who's now gracing the cover of Madden. Don't know how I feel about that, but
Could be a jinx, you never know.
Yep.
But we want to get you on the right track with some of our picks, our studs, people that we really think are going to stand out this year. And for me, I have to say I'm really a big fan right now of the Vikings offense, and one of the big standouts I think who's going to have a tremendous year, another season that he's going to be great for PPR leagues and stand out, Adam Thielen, a wide receiver. He's a guy that's going to have a ton of receptions per game, probably at least on a good day, I think, at least 8 receptions, at least 100 yards. And he's going to score more often than not. He's going to be somebody that's looked for in the red zone. And I really like him as a standout. I want to get your guys' picks, your standouts. Adam, let's go to you.
Who's your stud, Adam? Who's your stud?
Well, listen, I know a lot of people are going with this guy already, but I think there's reason to think he should be going even higher than he is in Christian McCaffrey, especially if you're in a PPR league. Christian McCaffrey is going to get a ton of targets. We've heard talk out of camp that they want to get him 30 to 35 touches per game. That's excessive. That's probably too many for him. He'd probably wear down pretty quickly. But it tells you how much they put in his corner. They put a ton of stock in him. They think he's going to be huge, and I do too. I think he's going to have a fantastic season. We saw a 70-yard run already here in the preseason. So people that say he can't run through the tackles, I think he'll be all right, and we know he's going to get a ton of catches. I look for him to get about 80 catches, which you're already starting with a huge floor for him. He's going to get points every week, but I think he's also going to run the ball a whole lot more than people expect. I know they brought in C.J. Anderson, but I don't think he's going to take a whole lot away from McCaffrey. So I'm picking McCaffrey higher than other people are taking him. I think one of the things here is he's going to be safe every week. He's going to put up points every week because they're going to use him so much. There's not going to be those total bust weeks. So Christian McCaffrey, I'm all in.
I'm actually in on a McCaffrey. It's the quarterback that I saw the other night beat Faith Lutheran 35-0, his younger brother. He's also a stud. I can't pick him in this, but in about 4 or 5 years, we might be picking that.
Keep an eye on him.
Keep watching preps for all that. Keep
about
following up on
preps.com here at the
McCaffrey.
Review Journal.
And one thing, Adam, you were just saying, about McCaffrey and getting a lot of touches and getting a lot of receptions is there's not a lot of just pure workhorses anymore when it comes to running backs or guys out of the backfield. And I think that, like you said, he's going to get a lot of looks. I love Christian McCaffrey this year also.
Yeah, running backs have become interchangeable in the NFL. We know that. They don't get the big money that much anymore unless they're the truly elite guy. Even Le'Veon Bell right now, he's still holding out. We don't know when he's going to be in the camp. He still wants more money. Running backs are interchangeable. So really when you're looking to play fantasy, it's all about opportunity. Opportunity is what you're looking for when you're drafting running backs. And McCaffrey, I think it's a big opportunity to really take that next step for the Panthers.
And Ed, you're a big stud. You went with the quarterback.
I did, and usually in fantasy, that's not a good thing. Even Aaron Rodgers now is going 3rd and 4th rounds of a lot of drafts. So quarterbacks, if Adam says running backs are interchangeable, which is true, more and more now, quarterbacks in the NFL, especially with these fantasy drafts, are dropping in the 3rd, 4th round. Rodgers is usually the first one, and then you could wait another round before, whether it's a Brady or someone else gets picked after that. I'll have a trend here with my picks today, and it's a great trend because they're all very hurt. I obviously enjoy injured players or people coming off major injuries, but my stud, I'm actually going to go with Deshaun Watson, the quarterback from Houston. I know he's coming off an ACL. I still don't think ACLs now in 2018 are like they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. I really, really like this guy. I think even if he projects, there's always a little regression with an ACL, but even if he would project close to last year's numbers, he'd be about 19 points a game without the running, and we know he runs. If you go to weeks 3 to 7 last year, I think it was almost 1,400 yards and 18 TDs. It projected to a nice number of 5,000 plus yards and 61 TDs. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but what I am saying is I do like Deshaun Watson. I like the skill people he has around them. When we get into our sleepers and our breakouts, I'll have another one of those guys. I like Deshaun Watson more for this reason. I believe later on, Adam Hill, my good friend and colleague, is going to tell you why to stay away from Deshaun Watson. And that's what this show should be about. We should completely disagree on everything, and then you pick who you want to when your draft happens. But I actually am a big Deshaun Watson fan. Being a Cowboys fan kills me that I do think, you were talking about Minnesota's offense and others, I really like Houston's offense when everyone's healthy. The problem is a lot of times they're not healthy, but I do like Deshaun Watson as my stud.
I do like him as an early pick, like you said, with the quarterbacks.
Where would you take him?
I would probably wait until the 5th round at least. I wouldn't jump on him earlier than that, and maybe I would even go down a little further and say 6th round.
Wow.
But
okay.
yeah, I mean,
my stud's dropping.
I think that for me, on a quarterback, I don't like to jump too early on quarterbacks unless it's somebody like Aaron Rodgers. I'd totally jump on that pick early, like you said. He's going 3rd round.
I don't know if what you guys. I've made not the mistake, because I think Aaron Rodgers is really good until he got hurt last year. He was a stud and he was really helping me win a lot of games. I was in 1st place in my league. He goes down, another guy goes down. I finished out of the money, but I can't help myself. The last 3 years, I have picked him my first pick of the 2nd round, and he's just too, to me, that temptation, that fruit hanging there. And I know I shouldn't. I should go running back, I keep doing it. But again, I'm telling you, on Thursday night when we draft another league that you and I are going to be in the 2nd round, when you look over at me and it's my pick and Aaron Rodgers is off the board, you can announce my pick before anyone else does, because I know I'm going to fall into the same trap of taking Aaron Rodgers in the 2nd round if I can get him.
I usually will wait until everybody already has a quarterback.
And then pick.
And sometimes people have 2 quarterbacks.
Yes.
And at that point, you can still get a guy, because the fact of the matter is, it's tempting. I agree with you. And
he's kind
Aaron
of the
Rodgers,
only tempting one to me.
Every week, you're going to get a ton of points, but the disparity between the top quarterbacks and the middle tier quarterbacks just isn't high enough when you look at the disparity between running backs and the other running backs. If you don't have a running back, you're going to be really chasing some points there. If you don't have a quarterback, you're going to find it somewhere.
I hate that you're right, but you're right. And I hate when he's right. He's true. He's right, but I'm telling you, on Thursday night I will pick him again. Yeah. I might even go insane if it's a snake draft. So if I'm like 12th, I might say Aaron Rodgers in the 1st round.
Now that I know how early you're going to jump on it, I'm going to have a number ahead of you. Yeah. That's the thing about this show.
I shouldn't be doing this.
We all play fantasy leagues. We're going to have one too. We're going to actually bring you the results of that draft. We're going to have it on Thursday morning before the NFL season starts. It's going to be very exciting. So we're looking to do a lot of fun things here with this, and having these two together on the show is also something I'm happily looking forward to continue throughout the season. And throughout the season, something, when people draft for their fantasy teams, I wonder how often do you look at the offense and go, okay, this is a team that's going to go on the field and score 30 points a game when you're drafting. Is that something that you do? And if you do, who's the team that you're looking at this year to really stand out? For me, again, I already said it, I like the Vikings. I like Green Bay also. I think that those are teams that you're going to see a lot of points produced on the field, even Detroit. I wonder, when you look at that, how much do you put that stock into drafting a player from that team? Do you go with the Steelers, or is it just Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell that really have any weight?
You got Juju too there, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
You've got some weapons. So I think late in the draft, it is certainly a tiebreaker where you look and say, hey, this team's going to score a lot of points. The points have to come from somewhere. We've got to get those guys. But I think it's more just opportunity. Those good offenses tend to have a lot of guys and spread them around. That's why they're good offenses. I think you just look for guys that are going to have opportunities to perform. That's what you go with early. You kind of avoid picking a team. But I'll say a team, if you're going to look at a team, listen, the Rams, they have guys. Certainly Gurley is going at the top of drafts. They've got receivers where you're kind of trying to figure out where they fall. But I will tell you this, McVay is the most brilliant person that has ever stepped on a football field. I will stand by that forever. Jared Goff stinks. And you saw the numbers he put up last year. You saw that what that offense did. That is all McVay. You can plug Ed or I into the quarterback spot. Even you, Heidi, you can play quarterback for the Rams, and you're going to put up big numbers because McVay is that brilliant. So I guess if you're going to look for a team, you say, hey, I want somebody on that Rams team because they're going to score a ton of points.
Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned that with McVay, and it's like Jared Goff showed to us that he doesn't even know what side of
where does the sun
rises. So, if he could figure out a whole playbook and he doesn't know what side of the earth that the sun rises, I think, McVay is probably a genius.
That's fair.
Well, I've got to stop him because I've got a 17-year-old at home right now who's in love with Jared Goff, who disagrees with Adam Hill completely on him being atrocious. But I will agree on the Rams offense. And again, I'll go back to Houston. I think Houston, if they're healthy, and there's some definite injury issues there with Fuller and obviously with the quarterback, but I don't know why I like them. I'll tell you what. I'll give out a pick right now. I'll take the 6.5 against New England on opening night.
Oh, wow. I like it. Laying down the numbers.
I think they're going to take the 6.5. I think they'll cover. I don't know if they're going to win, but if you're going to get New England, you're going to get them in the opening week or early.
Well, you keep bringing up the Texans offense, Ed, and Adam actually disagrees with you on Deshaun Watson. So this gets into our busts here for the fantasy season. Adam, you're going with Deshaun Watson. Why is that?
I have a feeling we're going to be arguing about Deshaun Watson all year when we come in here because obviously I think he's a bust. Ed thinks he's on the stud list. Here's the issue with Deshaun Watson. He was unbelievable last year in the very limited time he was on the field. He electrified the league. People were talking about him all the time. But if you really dig deep at the numbers, it's not sustainable what he was doing last year. His touchdown percentage per attempt was off the charts, like better than any quarterback you're ever going to see. He's not going to do that again. There's no way. He's coming off the injury. That's a bit of a concern, although at this time with medical advancements, ACL is really not that big of a deal for guys in their prime, so I think he's going to be fine there. I just think the numbers were not sustainable, and the fact that the league has some tape on him now. They didn't. I think people were completely caught off guard by what he did last year. This offense is good, and O'Brien, he can bring him along, but I think that what he did last year was just not something that you're going to see out of Deshaun Watson long term, and I'm going to avoid taking him, especially because his stock is rising way too much. People are getting completely carried away by a very short sample size.
So, like when I was saying 5th or 6th round, where would you go with him?
With him, I'm not taking him at all. But I mean, that's about where he's coming off the board. I just think it's crazy. I mean, like I said, I don't take quarterbacks anyway. But there's no way I'm gonna have him on a team. You think about Deshaun Watson certainly adds a lot with what he can do with his legs. We can put up extra points based on that. But a guy like Matt Ryan, I think he's going to have a big bounce back year this year. I'm getting him in like the 11th round. I mean, people aren't taking him. They're just letting him go off the board. He's got to throw to Julio Jones. Julio Jones is going to put up points. Somebody has to throw to those guys. And I think, an offense like that where Matt Ryan, you try to find a guy having a year where they're coming off a down year. The value is down. You take him late. I'll tell you another guy, Andrew Luck, is the same way.
I love Andrew Luck this year.
So yes, I mean we're going to talk about that, but he's a guy who's not being drafted until the 11th round. So I'll take my chances on a guy like that. Maybe getting 2 of those quarterbacks, figuring out who's playing well. I'm not going to reach and take a guy like Deshaun Watson.
Someone in the league I just drafted in, they actually took Andrew Luck in the 6th round, and I was highly upset. I mean, good for them for being on point with that, but I think that Andrew Luck, again, he's going to have a breakout year, that he's going to be able to come back and really work his way back into that offense, smooth as ice. Ed, you're going with the bus that's an interesting one to me.
Of the Las Vegas Raiders.
We get out there, we get out there on the field every week. We've been to all the games last year, and we'll be doing it again this year. Vegas Nation, make sure to check that out. Who is the guy on that team that you're staying to avoid?
I think I'd avoid Marshawn Lynch. I mean, I say this knowing being at most games with you last year that Marshawn Lynch was really their only player for a lot of those weeks. They were so bad once Carr went down, they couldn't throw the ball. They were a disaster offensively other than Marshawn. But you have to be really special in the league to be good north of 30 as a running back. He's 32. He's had almost, 2,400 carries. They brought Doug Martin in, I think, for a reason. Chris Warren, the kid, the rookie, has obviously exceeded all expectations. I can't believe he can't make the 53. He's just proven himself. I don't think DeAndre Washington makes it. I think his knee's going to keep him out, but Jalen Richard will probably be on the 53. I don't think he'll get the work to make a huge difference. Now, the only way I could be wrong here is I would think, at least early on, any goal line stance, he will be the guy. So I might be proven completely wrong here, and he will still score fantasy points. But again, I don't like 32-year-old running backs who've had a lot of carries who actually sat out a year. I'm not a big Marshawn guy, and I think he's just going to continue to regress. I don't think he'll be here when they come to Vegas in 2020. He's even said that. I think they didn't. They brought Doug Martin in for a reason. He hasn't had a ton of work in the preseason. Maybe that's a good thing because most running backs I don't think should play in the preseason, other than a guy like Warren who's looking for a job and trying to make a roster. Marshawn Lynch is my bust. I could, like I said though, the only thing that worries me about that is if Gruden's offense can get within the 5 to 7 yard line, he will be the one, at least early on, getting the carries. But I'm going to believe the offense when I see it. I mean, Carr hasn't played very much, and I wouldn't have played him either. But let's see what John Gruden does coming back to football on a weekly basis now with that offense.
And for me, I'm going with Devontae Parker. I thought last year he was going to break out. I thought he had the right amount of speed. I thought that he had, really good hands. And he really proved to not be able to do any of that when it came time for pressure, when it came to crunch time. And he was also injured quite a bit. And so for me, I'm going with Devontae Parker. I know a lot of people are looking at him this year as a candidate to break out, but I just don't think that he has it. I don't think that he's going to be the guy that you can rely on. And I think he gets injured pretty early in the season just because he seems to be fragile. He seems to constantly have ailments.
Can't believe I haven't made him my star then. If he's hurt.
I love the injured guy.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. So he's somebody I'm going to avoid like the plague when it comes time to draft. But let's look on the flip side of all of the bus and talk about some breakouts. I think that there's a lot of teams and players that people are going to overlook during the draft. And for me, one of them are my beloved 49ers. I think that a lot of people don't think Jimmy Garoppolo will be that starter who's going to shine. Some people do, but it's kind of hot and cold. There's not a lot of just everybody being behind it, yes or no. And there's a lot of question marks on the offense. But I do think a standout on that team is going to be Marquise Goodwin. I love his speed. I love his ability to get open. And he's somebody that I'm looking to take maybe a little bit deeper into the drafts. Not necessarily sleeper, but somebody that I'd look for right as a third receiver or so.
He's a track star. You mentioned his speed. I mean, he's an
Yeah.
Olympian. He's always been a guy everybody was hoping could have that big breakout season. He really bonded well with Garoppolo at the end of last year, and I think that's why a lot of people right now are thinking, yeah, he could take that next step. But as a guy who used to be a Bills fan, I'm not anymore.
Look at the shirt on you.
I know. I'm going with the Browns colors. That's what I do now. Marquise Goodwin is a guy who, for years, everybody thought was going to have a breakout, campaign. Never really quite came together. It's starting to look like it might. Let's see if he can keep that going with his rapport with Garoppolo.
We'll see. And for you, Ed, who do you have again? I think you're
Another
keeping a
hurt player.
theme. You're keeping a theme.
Yes, I'm
yeah.
keeping a theme. He'll be ready for the opener against New England, and that's Will Fuller, the wide receiver from Houston. And again, here's a guy, much like Deshaun Watson last year, when he was good, he was good. There was a period of 4 weeks there where 7 of his 13 receptions were touchdowns. He has blazing speed. The other 6 games he actually played in, he averaged 24 yards a catch. So he's completely a big play guy. I think if he stays healthy, he could have a huge year, especially when most of the people key on DeAndre Hopkins. And, he's on the other side. He's faster than anything. And, again, he's got to stay healthy. He tweaked a hamstring, although they said today he could play if they opened against New England today. So he's got another week to wait on that. And I think Will Fuller's a huge deal. It's not because I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I think he's really, really good. And like Adam, whether it's stud or bust, a lot of it's going to be on Deshaun Watson, how good Will Fuller is. I mean, if Deshaun Watson doesn't have a good year, then Will Fuller's not. So I'm going to base this on, I think Deshaun Watson has a good year, and then I think Will Fuller on the other side of Hopkins is pretty good.
And for me, I talked all about earlier, opportunity is what it's all about with running backs. So I'm going to go with Alex Collins. Alex Collins is a guy who's going to get the overwhelming majority of the carries for the Ravens, and he's falling down draft boards. I can't really understand why. I mean, I know people aren't necessarily over the top enthused by him, and the Ravens have shown a tendency to throw the ball way too much over the last few years, but they've got a guy they really trust in Alex Collins. They really like what he can do, and it's all about opportunity. Nobody else is going to take the spot. Buck Allen is a guy for a couple of years. People are like, this is the guy. He's going to take over. He's going to be the third down guy and cut into the carries early in the downs. He hasn't shown to be that guy, and I don't think he is. I think Alex Collins gets a ton of carries this year, and that really helps him exceed where his draft position is.
Are you more apt to go with someone like that on a team? Although I think that team's going to be good, but when you said that name, I also thought of someone like Joe Mixon, where you get a guy who maybe the team's like a 7-9 game, but he's going to get all the work. And like you said, Adam's talked about before, offenses with a ton of good players, maybe they're not always the guys looked for because they spread it around so much. But someone like Collins or Joe Mixon, where maybe you're on a 7-9, 6-10 team, it really doesn't matter if you get points. And those are the guys I do think you look for because they're going to get all the work.
Yeah, and but in the case of like someone like Alex Collins, if you're in a PPR, he also is pretty good out of the flat.
Right.
And he'll be catching.
He'll catch a lot of balls.
Yeah, so see somebody to also look out depending on what kind of league you're in as well. He could definitely be a big star, and I think it's interesting because, like you said, last year there were a lot of injuries in that Ravens backfield, and when Buck Allen was in the mix, he wasn't producing. He was maybe getting like 3 yards a carry, and here comes Alex Collins out of nowhere. He started just blazing fast out of there, and he was somebody I actually ended up picking up on the waiver wire. That's no secret anymore. We're not going to be able to keep him as a free agent. He's going to get drafted somewhere.
It's not a secret. You'd be surprised how low he is going in drafts. I've been kind of surprised by that as I've gone through not only mock drafts but my first couple of leagues. He's falling down the boards, and I don't get it, but hopefully it's to my benefit.
Somebody that we're looking for, that we're trying to pick, in the later rounds, like your sleeper pick. Those are the guys that sometimes can really win you your league. Not enough people really know who to look out for when it gets into those later rounds. So we're going to go ahead and break down some of the sleepers. For me, I really like Ryan Grant in the Colts offense because with the absence now of Dante Moncrief, he's not there. Their tight end situation is just a little bit flaky. You don't know how good Jack Doyle's going to be there. He hasn't really necessarily been reliable. So I'm looking at Ryan Grant to really be able to make that offense good and to be somebody that Andrew Luck's able to throw to, aside from just T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, if you think that Andrew Luck is going to have a big bounce back year and he's going to be successful, and they're holding him back a little bit, but it looks like his arm is close to getting back to full strength, and he's going to shake the rust off a little bit. He's got to throw the ball to somebody. So you mentioned T.Y. Hilton, he's going to have a lot of the focus. They do have the big tight end situation with Doyle and now with Ebron as well. But Ryan Grant is a guy who has proven to be a possession guy, and I think Andrew Luck will rely on him a lot. So if you believe in Luck, Ryan Grant might be a way to go.
Ed, who are you going with as your sleeper pick?
Well, he's a sleeper, probably in name only because he's a lead running back, but he still has to prove himself because I think his numbers in Minnesota demand that he prove himself now in San Francisco, but it's Jerick McKinnon. And I think if you're in a PPR league, he's great because he could catch as many as 60 balls. Shanahan's already said he's also going to line up on a wide receiver. He's on your team, the Niners now. I know they have Matt Breida, they have others, but I think he's a lead guy who I loved him. He didn't do a lot in Minnesota in terms of breaking out, but I do think the guy has the ability, because of his ability to line up as a receiver and catch balls, and also his running ability as a lead back. I know that's usually not the sleeper, but I'll say he's a sleeper in terms of he won't be picked in the first round, but I won't be shocked at the end of the year if he's good enough to where people would have rethought higher rounds than where he usually goes in some of these drafts.
It's all about opportunity with running backs, as we talked about, and he's going to have the opportunity.
He has the opportunity to be the guy.
Question.
Yeah, they do now actually have Alfred Morris too, throwing him in the mix as a third one. So I don't know where he fits in.
Not worried.
I don't know where he fits in, but like you said, he's definitely going to be the guy PPR wise.
PPR is, I think, is a really good pick. Huge. Standard, I'm not so sure, but if he gets 50 to 60 catches in a PPR league as a lead back, that's pretty good.
Adam, who have you got?
Listen, there's good and bad news with my sleeper. I was all over Keelan Cole anyway, and then Marquise Lee goes down with a torn ACL, so or at least with a knee injury. So Keelan Cole now is rising up draft boards a little bit. I was very happy to get him in last round or two, my first couple of drafts. Now you have to pay a little bit more of a price. But Keelan Cole is a dynamic playmaker for the Jaguars. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the number one receiver now. He already was kind of a go-to guy. Now with Allen Robinson out, with Lee hurt, he is going to be the man down there. I know Blake Bortles. I get it. I don't want to have any part of that offense either. But he will go to Keelan Cole. Now, D.D. Westbrook is a guy who's a really, really good playmaker. He's got a ton of speed. Just hasn't proven it yet. I know he was the guy last year. A lot of people expected to break out. But it is Keelan Cole who was the man for them. So I think he's still worth it, even though he's rising up the draft boards. I think he's going to have a big year.
I had to ask you, are wearing orange. I know you're now a Browns fan. Where do you put To God Taylor?
It's still Tyrod.
I have put him in your
I have
mix.
made the case that this is just a battle between his parents. His dad says Tyrod, his mom says Tyrod. I'm sticking with Tyrod because that's what we've called him for his whole career. I'm obsessed with him. He is my favorite player. But I'm not taking him in fantasy. He's going to be the starter until they're out of the playoff race. And, that could happen fairly soon because the schedule is brutal. I think that's a hugely improved team. I think they're going to have a whole lot more success than they did last year, but it might not show up on the scoreboard necessarily right away because that schedule is brutal. But he is going to make the other guys around him better too. Jarvis Landry is going to have a huge season. He had 9 targets in the first quarter of a preseason game the other day. He's going to have all kinds of opportunity. I do love Carlos Hyde as well. I know people are going with Chubb, but I think Hyde is going to be the guy for a large part of this season. And they'll save Chubb for down the road. So there's guys I'm interested in on that team. Njoku has kind of been a breakout guy in the preseason. But you have to keep in mind, with Hard Knocks, you always have to pay a premium for all the guys that are on that show. So they're all being overdrafted, especially Jarvis Landry. So a lot of stay away there.
Probably overpicked as well, because not only am I taking the Texans in the points in opening week, I'm taking the Browns in the points in opening week.
Oh, wow.
I like that as well.
They actually usually cover against the Steelers. They don't win a lot of those games, but they usually cover.
Close.
There's two dogs to look at in the first week, Houston and Cleveland.
All right, guys, rapid fire. If you have the number 1 pick in your fantasy draft, who are you going with, Ed?
Todd Gurley.
Standard Todd Gurley, PPR. I'll go Le'Veon Bell, even though still not in camp yet. It looks like he's going to come in on Labor Day, so I wouldn't be too worried about it.
I had the number 1 pick. I did take Todd Gurley, so I can't even pretend that I would take anybody else in my last league.
If I had the number 2 pick, probably Aaron Rodgers. But go ahead. No.
Okay, Aaron Rodgers, number 2. I like it. On Snake Draft, I don't know if you get them both, but, you can always hope. But that'll do it for us here on the Fantasy Show. Fantasy Outlaws. Again, give us all a follow here on Twitter at Adam Hill, LVRJ, at Ed Graney. I'm at Heidi Fang. Thanks for watching, and keep your gridiron game strong.